My stepdad said, "Real men don't cry over dead dogs," and he kicked the urn off the table. He didn't know my biological father was standing in the hallway recording everything. I was 17 when my German Shepherd Max died from cancer, 3 months after my mom married Dennis. Max had been with me since I was 7, through my parents' divorce, through moving 6 times, through every bad day and panic attack. When he died in my arms on a Thursday morning, something inside me broke. The urn arrived on a Monday, simple black ceramic with Max's name engraved on a brass plate. I put it on the bookshelf in my room where I could see it from my bed. Dennis had barely tolerated Max while he was alive, complaining about dog hair and vet bills. He'd moved into our house 4 months earlier after a quick engagement. Within a week, he started making comments about my room being messy, my grades not being good enough, how I needed to toughen up. My mom would tell him to back off, but he'd smile and say someone needed to teach me how to be a man, since my real father clearly hadn't done the job. The comments got worse after Max died. Dennis would make jokes about how I cried more over a dog than most people cried at human funerals. 3 days after the urn arrived, I came home and found Dennis in my room going through my stuff. When I asked him to leave, he picked up the urn and examined it like it was a curiosity. He said people waste money on dead pets when they could just throw them in the trash. I told him to put it down. He laughed and dropped it back on the shelf with a heavy thunk that made me wince. Then he said I needed to grow up and stop mourning a stuffed animal. I texted my biological father that night. My parents had split when I was 13 after my dad came out as gay. The divorce had been brutal. My dad moved 3 hours away with his partner James, and I only saw him on alternating weekends, but we texted almost every day. I told him about Dennis going through my room, touching Max's urn, making cruel comments. My dad responded immediately asking if I was okay. I said I hadn't told my mom because she seemed happy. My dad wrote back saying my well-being mattered more than my mom's relationship status. That Friday after school, Dennis came home early. I heard him and my mom arguing in the kitchen about money, something about losing a big sale and needing to borrow from her savings to cover his car payment. About an hour later, Dennis knocked on my door without waiting and walked in. He was holding a beer, his face red in that way that meant he'd had several already. He started talking about how I needed to show more respect in his house, that he was tired of my attitude. I stayed quiet, hoping he'd leave. Instead, he walked over to my bookshelf and picked up Max's urn. He held it up and asked why I was keeping dead dog ashes like some kind of shrine. He said real men don't cry over dead dogs, and I needed to get over it. Something in his tone made my stomach twist. I stood up and told him to put it down and get out. He laughed this mean, drunk laugh and said he was doing me a favor, teaching me about emotional weakness. Then he held the urn out away from his body and asked what I was going to do about it. My hands were shaking. I told him again to put it down. He just kept laughing, wobbling like he was considering dropping it. That's when my mom appeared in the doorway. Dennis turned toward her. The movement made him lose his grip. The urn hit the floor with a horrible cracking sound. The ceramic split into 3 pieces and gray ash spilled across my carpet. I dropped to my knees trying to gather the ash with my hands, vision blurring. My mom was yelling at Dennis. He backed away, saying it was an accident, that I'd provoked him. All I could focus on was Max's ashes mixed with carpet fibers. I was crying so hard I couldn't breathe. My mom dropped down next to me, crying too, apologizing. Dennis watched us for another minute, then said he was going out and left. We spent the next hour collecting as much ash as we could into a plastic container. I took photos of everything: the broken urn, the ash on the carpet, the plastic container. I sent them to my dad without explanation, and he called immediately. I answered and just started crying. He stayed on the phone over an hour while I explained everything. He was furious in this quiet, controlled way that was scarier than yelling. He asked me to record a video describing what happened, including Dennis's exact comments about real men not crying over dead dogs. He said to send it and not tell anyone else yet. I recorded the video sitting on my floor with the broken urn visible in frame. I described Dennis going through my room multiple times, his comments about Max, him coming in drunk, picking up the urn and dropping it, his exact words about real men and emotional weakness. I sent it to my dad. He responded saying he was coming early tomorrow morning instead of evening. He was bringing James. They'd be there by 9 a.m. I should pack a bag. That night, I barely slept. Around 3 a.m., I heard Dennis stumble home. I heard them arguing in low voices before it went quiet. The next morning, at exactly 9 a.m., my doorbell rang. I grabbed my bag and ran downstairs. My mom was still in her robe, confused. Dennis was in the kitchen making coffee, his back to us. My dad walked in with James right behind him, but there was someone else with them, a woman in a dark suit holding a badge. She looked directly at Dennis and said his full name. Then she asked if we could all sit down because she had questions about what happened in this house yesterday. Dennis's coffee mug froze halfway to his mouth. Full story on my channel and linked below.